and senior White House officials tonight confirming to me that the president will address the threat from ISIS during tonight's State of the Union, arguing we must stay the course. But he will also try to offer a hopeful view of where this country is headed. We're told it will not be a list of policy priorities like speeches in the past, but that this will be something much different. And ABC's chief White House correspondent Jonathan Karl tonight getting a first look at the speech just moments ago. Hey, John.
David, this is big themes. This is making the case for his presidency. We've just gotten a look at some of the excerpts. In one of them, he compares what's happened under his presidency to big changes in American history, a clear reference to the political campaign. The optimism we hear from the president is not shared by Republicans. In fact, David, just today, Paul Ryan said the world is on fire because the president does not have a strategy to combat ISIS.
Could be another tumultuous final year. John Karl with us right here. John, thanks so much. George Stephanopoulos and the entire Powerhouse political team will be right here tonight for the State of the Union starting at 9 p.m. Eastern. And, of course, John and I will be right here with them.
News anchor David Muir. That's the tweet from the president right there. But the White House also saying that this is going to be a different kind of State of the Union.
You're absolutely right, George. In fact, senior White House officials confirming to me today that this is going to be a very different State of the Union from what we've heard before from this president. The president remembering that very first one, that call to Mr. Speaker that the president had arrived behind that door. For one, senior White House officials say this is going to be shorter. He's not going to be listing policy objectives that he hopes to achieve in the year ahead. But this is a president very aware of the rhetoric, the discourse in this country, particularly during this campaign season, and particularly on the Republican side. Make America great again. This president is going to try to make the case tonight that this country is great, his hope of what can still be accomplished in his final year and straight through Election Day. And quite frankly, George, up here on the Hill, Republicans are fully expecting that. In fact, the newly elected House Speaker Paul Ryan saying today, joking with reporters, that he practiced his poker face throughout the day today because, as we all know, he has a role tonight to perform as well. When does he applaud? When does he smile? When does he simply sit there? America going to be watching this president and the new House Speaker as well, George.
We see them right there. He's next to Vice President Biden. But David Muir, World News anchor David Muir, as John Karl just said right there, a couple of places where the president stepped right up to the line of naming Donald Trump, clearly stepped out and called out his politics.
No question, George. In fact, when you heard the president say when a politician insults Muslims, when mosques are vandalized, that doesn't make us safer as a country. It's just wrong. He said it makes us weaker in the world. And just to pick up on something that it struck you, George, as well, was that moment in the room when he was addressing not only the millions of Americans watching tonight, but lawmakers on both sides of the aisle in that room, when he said one of the few regrets of my presidency is that the rancor and the suspicion has gotten worse rather than better. And he went on to talk about being trapped by your base. I found that very interesting, that in talking, particularly during this political season, about the politics of extremism in this country, saying, you know, the only way to get out of being trapped by your base is to do something about it yourself. So at least that part of the State of the Union seemed directly aimed at both Republicans and Democrats in that hall.
Echoes there, David Muir. So, David Muir, as we come away from both speeches tonight, the lines drawn, the debate framed for the rest of this year.
Yeah, and some of the common themes, as you all point out, Governor Haley saying if you just turn down the noise, George, you can actually hear others speak and get something done. You heard the president talk about his regret that the rancor has only increased during his presidency. And the Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, saying with reporters up here on the Hill today that he looks at this president not as his enemy, but as his adversary. So it's not a shifting of the course here, but perhaps a slight change in temperature and a recognition on the part of some of these leaders that the rhetoric, particularly on the campaign trail that everyone's witnessing, is extraordinarily heated. And the president hinted that he's been following perhaps a little more closely than we all thought.
Well, he has to follow because he knows that so much of his legacy depends on having a Democrat succeed him.